evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's all happening tonight, today. Though there's so much in the news, we thought we would come along and have an impromptu live stream and spend the hour with your good selves and hear your comments as well on the things that are happening. As I say, it's really quite remarkable what's been happening today. So, Phil, thanks for joining us.
That's okay.
Tonight.
Bit late notice, so Rich is going to keep me up to date with what's been happening.
Yeah. There's so many things I was thinking, I could make a video about that tomorrow. I could make a video about that. I thought, I'm actually going away tomorrow night in any case. So that, let's have a live stream and talk about a whole load of these things
So
in one
what's
go.
been happening?
But just while we're warming up,
Yeah.
I was talking about Craig Houston. So, Phil, you know Craig Houston's been arrested before that?
Yes, I watched a video on that.
Yeah. So I made the video and I commented on the live stream as well on Tuesday this week. And it's been really interesting seeing the comments and quite frustrating for me because it's as though, I think, as I said in the live stream, for some people, for any issue, there's two sides of it. And you've just got to be on one side or the other. And if someone's on the same side as you, then they can't be criticized. And it's as simple as that. So any issue that you can only have, you can be for or against. And that's it. So the things that I said about Craig, I said about, in particular, in the live stream, he was basically complaining, seemed to be objecting that Reform UK had got a candidate that was Asian, basically. And I was saying, you can't, what are you objecting to? Do you just not want Asian people involved in a political party? I don't quite see what the problem is there. And so expressing that sort of concern, and I said about the conspiracy theories sort of content as well. But people coming back and say with this really black and white, Craig addresses the issue, and so that's it. There's nothing else to say. He's on the right side, so there can be nothing else to say about that issue. And in particular, when it came to race and Islam, when I didn't say Craig was racist, I said I don't like the way he talks about race sometimes, and I can't see what he's getting at, apart from, but it doesn't seem a good attitude under that. But then people replying saying, you called him racist or whatever. I mean, it's just, it's quite disappointing when people are responding and you hope to have some sort of intelligent exchange, but basically you can't, because people they're driven by loyalties and very black and white thinking about things, and it can be very difficult to make.
Well, there was a season where everyone was racist, wasn't there? That everyone was labelled as being racist. Yeah. So probably people are left as being kind of sensitive to that. That anything that might imply that is people might think you're coming from that perspective. But yeah, I think all you're saying is that you don't take the same line on that issue in terms of tone, But yeah. And I think for Craig, you say conspiracy and things like that. I think he's legitimately, blown the lid off some things, but also the logistics of like running a YouTube channel is that you have to be fairly sensationalist to keep the views coming in. And if sensational things are not happening, then you kind of have to use clickbaity and sensational language to make it sound like they are, or they might be, or could this be that? And I don't like that, but it's like it's a sad side effect of the way that YouTube works.
It sure is. It sure is. Anyway, I just thought I'd give that a mention. Something similar before we get on to the main topics. I made this video today, actually, just today, wasn't it? It went up this afternoon.
Yeah.
This was Nigel Farage saying he's pro-abortion, but he just thinks the time limit should be trimmed by a couple of weeks.
Smaller. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I made the video about that. I said, basically, is what he's saying, like better than nothing. Yes, it's better than nothing. But then you get people replying, and so many replies, they're sort of not making sense, or it's as though they haven't watched the video, or some of it's like, how dare you criticize Nigel Farage? Or it's interesting when you make a video and it maybe reaches beyond our normal audience in some ways. It's very interesting to see how people reply, and so often people online, it's as if they've got a sort of tribal loyalty, and they're just trying to find the opportunity to strike a blow for their side. There's no possibility of, right, here's something new to think about. So this is thinking, right, that there's this aspect and there's this aspect. Let's see how these fit together. Maybe this is out of balance or whatever. It's just, right, I'm on this side, so I'm coming to tell you I'm on this side. And if you're not on this side, then you're useless or whatever. I guess it's online. That's online debate in particular. Probably X is the worst for it, isn't it? But yeah, I've been seeing my fair share of comments like that at the moment. And I think as the family party, part of it, I think we're doing something important, like, for example, with Craig Christian, for example, in distinguishing ourselves from other points of view. Now, in doing that in the short term, people who like sort of sensationalists, or what I would regard as not the right attitude with regard to sort of race or Islam or whatever, in distinguishing ourselves from that, okay, that's going to be, there's some people are not going to be very happy, but I don't think they'll be supporters in any case. You'd hope in the longer term, people would be attracted to that. There will be a benefit to it, but I think the benefit is much longer term, and the sort of initial hostility is just that, is initial. So we've had a fair share of that in the last couple of days. Did you see Nigel Farage's comments then?
Yeah, I saw him talking, and I think, like, the way he's put things is he's done so in such a way that people will think, oh, he would at least have things move in the right direction, and that might persuade people to vote. And so he's kind of placed himself in the middle, as it were, on this issue that he sees as an issue of conscience, and so strategically, that's maybe not a bad place to be if the people that you're seeking to vote for you fall on either side of that argument. And so I think the point that he's made will seem perhaps reasonable to most pro-choice people, saying that yes, I think there should be a choice, but no, if the baby's viable, because I think that's what a lot of pro-choice people would say. You've got the extreme ones who are saying that no, abortion right up to birth, but an argument I encounter a lot on the streets is that if the baby is not viable, then that's fine. And so we've got this thing where now we know that a baby is viable at 22 weeks a lot of the time, and so there's a lot of people who are saying, well, maybe the law should reflect that. In reality, it makes little difference to the number of babies being aborted, and so I disagree with what's being said there, but as a strategic position, I think there's a whole bunch of maybe Christians who'll think, oh yeah, he seems pro-life-ish,
I've had that already. There are already people saying, obviously what Nigel Farage said, you see, is sort of pro-life, you see.
Yeah.
Sure. But Frassoli, he wasn't speaking on behalf of reform. Yes. And if we're talking percentages, it's like 99.7% pro-choice, 0.3% pro-life, if you want to put it in statistics. But one of my frustrations, I said in the video, is that the pro-life campaigning groups will give him a big headline.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage calls for restrictions on abortion.
Yeah.
Then in the small print, it'll explain the true situation.
I mean, maybe we should do an infographic on that, which is just a bar or a pie chart that shows how many percent pro-life he is, But,
but again, better than nothing. But the problem is, if these 2 weeks did get knocked off the time limit on the basis of the argument he put forward, then that will be the end of the road.
I don't think so. I think the good thing from my perspective is that he's brought it up. He said, look, here's an issue that needs debated around abortion, where there's many people who say there's nothing debatable, and that thing of pushing in the other direction, even though it's by a tiny amount, because in Scotland people are pushing for abortion right up to term.
And in England, in UK.
And in England as well, So that thing of actually saying that there is an argument to move in the other direction, it creates a platform for us to make our case. And I think that's maybe a significant thing.
And it keeps the issue on the agenda, which always says what we want. The last thing we want is settled, quiet, undisturbed evil. So that was interesting. Right, let's get on to the issues of the day a little bit more. Just staying with reform, it's interesting, and basically reform are the news at the moment. The same as like Trump is the news on the world stage. In the UK, to a large extent, reform are the political news. So just to recap on what happened here. So Reform UK's new MP, Sarah Pokin, I think she's called it right. So she had her first question at Prime Minister's question time. And she basically said to Keir Starmer, will you ban the burqa? Which was a really strange question to ask because it's not UK reform policy to ban the burqa. So
it might have been a strategic question for her to ask in terms of the result that it's precipitated. Given her question, it maybe lets us know what she might think of Yusuf, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so she said that constituents
quite happy with the result of it.
I mean, I think it was just not smart at all to pressurize the Prime Minister and basically to be demanding that he does something that's not your party's policy. I mean, that's really unintelligent, basically. I mean, that's a pretty big blunder to go into Parliament and do that.
And was that what precipitated the resignation, or do you think it was totally there on the cards already decided before that?
But I'll come to that. Yeah. So Yusuf tweeted almost immediately, that was a really dumb question to ask. Yeah. Correct, it was. But, obviously you don't do that publicly. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, that's just crazy. You don't just go to Twitter and put that on Twitter. If you're trying to run a professional organization, you ring the alarm bells behind the scenes and say, oh, whatever's going on here. And it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't that big a deal. I mean, it could have been smoothed over. She could have been spoken to and told that was really not smart at all. And that could have been smoothed over. But it was that people are saying that there were tensions simmering behind the scenes, power struggles, etc. I don't know. But it's not definite.
He doesn't mind about the damage at that point because he said, it's not worth my time to put resources into reform. It doesn't suit my ends, I guess, that they get into power or whatever. So it's like almost that he's, he doesn't care if they make it or not. And that comment that, you made is dumb, basically says, him saying that is saying, I my injury reform, I don't care.
I think Lee Anderson, another Reform MP, takes to Twitter to say, yes, good point, we should ban the burqa. Which again, you just think, this is not smart. These are not, on this showing, these people are not reacting intelligently to a situation. They're showing that the sort of people it would be a nightmare to manage and try and have in a political party together. So this is the way it's ended up. Now, some people are saying, okay, this is typical Farage. This is what always happens. There's always fallouts. There's always people in key positions leaving not under a cloud, but leaving on bad terms, let's say, with grievances. And it seems like this is going to be another one. The other thing I say, I'm not sure I've heard other people saying this, but I think when you go over to this side of the political spectrum, you can tend to get people who are can be a bit difficult to work with. They're not the most compromising people. They're not the sort of people who say, oh, let's have a chat about it. They're a bit more strident.
It's to be sort of expected because it's the people that care that are going to get involved and they're going to be hot under the collar about something. The people that don't care that much don't get involved.
I think it applies more on the right than on the left, though, that point.
I don't know. Like
that was my impression in my days in UK.
Was quite far out.
Who, sorry?
Jeremy Corbyn's gang.
Did they fall out with each other, though?
Oh, you mean the falling out part of it?
Yeah.
I
think there is some sort of correlation there, one way or another.
Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens with Labour. That maybe maybe we get into power because we're the only party left standing. What do you think?
Uh-huh.
They
Yeah.
all implode. It's just the Scottish Family Party left.
I think with reform, if they got elected to be the UK government now, I think it would be sort of total chaos. It would be dysfunctional. I mean, they've got a few years, but they'll get more and more professional people in. So, I'm not saying that this will always be the case.
For us, that the interesting thing will be that it moves the centre. When you had the Tories and Labour going more and more left, what was defined as centre was like somewhere between them, kind of thing, or what people viewed as being centre. And with reform coming in, it moves that, I think, in people's minds. And so it means that we're less far off centre probably than people would think.
Yeah, it's interesting because some of the policies, reform's most controversial policies, we're probably less controversial on them. We're a little bit more mainstream and balanced or whatever. Whereas our policies that are controversial, often reform are like nowhere on them. So it's an interesting contrast. The other thing I think with this, with Zia Yousaf resigning, and we will actually boost reform support.
I think so. I think, amongst the, amongst the base, I think it will. I don't know, but interesting in his resignation, he said what he attributed his effect to reform to be in terms of the percentage rise in its vote. He said, I brought reform from 14% or whatever to, is it 30 or whatever it is, not sure what it is today. And the question is, did he? That obviously Nigel Farage is very much the public face, but he's invested in reform, hasn't he, a lot? He's a business backer of it, kind of thing. And money fuels these campaigns and things like that. I'm not sure to what tune he's invested in it. And, it would be interesting to see their accounts and see what the effect of him leaving would be. And Nigel Farage, as he worked closely with him and found him to be a good person to get on with and make sensible decisions with. I don't know how true that is, but that he will have been the one who's seeing him day to day. So
I thought he was very good as a media performer. He did quite a lot of frontline work, which maybe a party chairman wouldn't normally do so much of. But I thought Zia Yousaf was really good. I thought from the party's point of view, Nigel Farage would have been thinking, having a sort of Asian Muslim chairman, that's going to broaden our appeal. And I think that was right. And I think also, like you're saying, having a sort of Asian Muslim chairman, probably a lot of their base, their core support, probably don't really like that. And they might probably be glad to see him go. But I think Farage's focus is all on moving into the middle ground, expanding, because you're trying to get beyond 30%. You're trying to look at pretty mainstream people, pretty centrist people. So from that, so I think overall it will be a blow for reform, but it's not that big a deal. How many people have you even heard of Zia Yousaf? I think for people who are interested in politics, these people, you've seen them, you've read about them, whatever. But for the vast majority of voters, they just know that there's reform, and that's Nigel Farage. They've maybe seen that other bloke. What's his name? Can't remember his name. And that's reform. I think they're against net zero, and they don't like immigration. And that's it. That's all they know.
I think for Trump's team, like Trump, in his first term, had such a high turnover of people in his, office or whatever, that in top roles. It didn't seem to affect him too badly. He just sort of, people had seen him on The Apprentice or whatever. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. And as he tried people,
it probably doesn't affect their support, but it must affect the efficiency of the government.
Has government ever been efficient?
Probably not. But I mean, chopping and changing like that can only make it worse.
And I think something I said is like, I go to China quite regularly. My wife is Chinese, and so it's interesting to go somewhere where there isn't democracy and see something of the long-term projects that they can take on, and that they're not living for the vote or the, and so, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see some of the downsides of democracy, as well as this pandering to people's whims, and not making good long-term decisions.
We're going to come on to that later, aren't we? Particularly with respect to Edinburgh, but we'll get onto that later. Right, moving on to people falling out with each other. Elon Musk has, well, I don't know how you want to put it, like totally lost the plot or totally let fly at Donald Trump. Some people were predicting this would happen. I can't remember if you predicted it, Phil. I was trying to think if you predicted. But obviously, Elon Musk left the inner circle of the United States administration, but is now just firing off at Donald Trump as though this is just as any old Twitter spat. Yeah. But the trigger for it is Musk saying that the US government is going to bankrupt itself because they're just overspending and continuing to overspend. And that's not why we got involved in the government with Donald Trump. So he's really turned on Trump majorly.
Yes.
It's in here. Congress is spending America into bankruptcy. Now, I'd imagine on this issue, I'm certainly on Musk's side.
Yeah. I kind of lean towards that as well. Like, I think that the just government spending and spending. I don't like all the handouts that government gives, all the schemes and all those sorts of things, I think at the end of the day, you want to try and keep people's money in their pockets, and not think the government can spend it better than you, So yeah. So for things like winter fuel payments and things like that, that those are based on the fact that basically pensioners vote more than younger people, and so, it would be much better to take away some of the subsidies that are on renewables, bring down everyone's fuel payments easily by by whatever the winter fuel payments are, everyone happy, pretty much. But.
Yeah. But the government should get in the habit of the way you appeal to the electorate is you tell them what you're going to give to them. You tell them how much money you're going to spend and how they're personally going to benefit from it. That becomes the currency.
Who tend not to vote, and give it to the people who might marginally vote for you, or are most inclined to vote. It's a waste of time.
Yeah. Which the family party, we don't do at all. Our priority with government finances, taxes and benefits is family. It is supporting families with children, married couples with children. So it's not so our appeal. It's interesting. I remember talking to a BBC journalist once, and it was as though they couldn't quite get this. It was as though they were no, it wasn't. It was a report. They did a report on their website about our policies, and they presented it as though our pitch was, right, if you're a family with children, the family party is going to give you a good deal.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, no, that's not our message at all. That's not our message is for the good of this society and the propagation of this society. This is what we think is best for it. It's not an appeal to self-interest. But the BBC turned it into an appeal for self-interest because they just assumed that that's the way politics works.
If you don't have a younger generation, then the pensions aren't going to work for everyone. And that's where we are at the moment, that people can see that the money that people are paying in for the national insurance, they're not going to get back.
No, it's a Ponzi scheme, isn't it? Anyway, so this is just John. So what Musk? It was unclear why he left the government. People saying he needed to focus on his businesses. Tesla, in particular, I think, is not going particularly well at the moment.
I think that Musk is the brand to some extent for Tesla and for the things that he does. Like he doesn't spend any money on advertising. I don't know if that's changed at all. I don't think it's changed. And so part of the marketing is Elon Musk and his kind of underdog fighting the government, kind of everyone's against him and somehow he pulls through and he wins. And perhaps the worst thing that could happen for him was to actually go into office, be part of the government, and to be and so part of me thinks he half needed to do that to actually put some tension between him and Trump, for his businesses to survive at all. And the point he's making is basically right here. But
I mean, a pretty dramatic way to do it, though.
But that's what he does. That's what you expect from him is drama.
I mean, I would see this as it's like character flaw territory. But I'm saying from Trump, really, you just expect that if there's going to be some sort of disagreement, they'll just totally. But I think Trump's been relatively restrained, but Elon Musk just totally slating him and attacking him by any means possible.
To a certain extent, I think it sucks all the air out of the room. That while this is going on, nobody is paying any attention to what the Democrats are doing to reorganize or anything like that, and so you just, it keeps all of these names in the news, which to a certain extent is free publicity, and even us discussing this is, keeping both of their brands alive.
Yeah.
At the expense of all the other people who can't get any attention.
And all the other issues as well.
Yeah.
Well, again, that comes back to social media as well, doesn't it? There's an audience to talk about what everyone else is talking about, because you link in and the algorithms think, oh, well, maybe the person like this. If you talk about something completely original, then the algorithm thinks, well, this is, I don't know anyone who's interested in this.
I've got a friend who works at a certain company, and something that's happening in marketing is that they'll be on Twitter, and that the marketing person will fall out with the company. That they'll post something which is either at the wrong time or something like that, or there's something, and that the head of the company has to reply to them on Twitter and say you're fired, kind of thing, because you got this wrong. And there's some drama about it, but the whole thing is like made up. But it's to keep the brand in the public eye, and to have this saga of, the boss and the marketing person arguing in public, but in having that argument, they bring out all the features of their product, or all the,
right.
And it means that other people can't get that oxygen.
So do we need to try it?
Yeah, we could do it. We could try.
Have a big bust up tomorrow.
Yeah.
We probably need to discuss it in private, don't we?
I don't know. I think it became a bit of a game where everyone started doing it, and everyone knew it was fake, kind of thing.
Yeah. This is slightly off topic, but just it's related. I sometimes read newspaper headlines, online headlines, and they're just ungrammatical. They're just wrong.
Yeah. And
it's happening so much. I'm starting to think, is this a deliberate tactic? Because if I read a headline and it doesn't make sense, I read it 3 times, thinking, what? Hey, what? Do they do it deliberately?
It could be a symptom of AI generation sometimes.
Right.
I hope people aren't using it for headlines at the moment, but yeah. But sometimes there are like telltale signs of, like, something that repeats itself, starts repeating the thing it said earlier, is often AI generated. But
So everyone, have a look out for that. Keep your eye open for newspaper headline, online newspaper headlines that are just wrong. They're ungrammatical. They don't make sense. Because I'm starting to suspect this is a tactic, because it gets you to look at it for 3 times and think, oh, what is this? I don't understand this. So let's do some scientific research by next time. Have a look. So this is Donald Trump. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy. Musk saying this is an obvious lie. So they've really hit rock bottom with this today. But are they the sort of people who could have made up in 2 months' time and be mates again? I don't know. I mean, there's been the thing with Musk apparently having being with a black eye. Reports about his drug use. I'm really not sure what's going on behind the scenes.
I haven't heard anything about drug use. And he said he was hit by his child, but I don't know. So.
Then Musk came out with this. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the reason they've not been made public. I mean, again, that's just like, that's someone just trying to say the worst things they can, damage someone as much as possible. I mean, people are saying that the Epstein aeroplane files, that the flight log, that yes, Trump was on the aeroplane once, but he didn't go to the island. I haven't really followed the story closely. So, but I mean, why would Elon Musk know about that? I mean, who knows? Who knows? But it's pretty unedifying seeing it played out like that. I mean, is Musk going to come up with any evidence, or he's going to explain why he thinks he knows that? But I guess, again, that's social media for you. These things just get thrown around. But surely Trump will have an army of lawyers on this already. Who knows? But it just seems a pretty... yeah, Phil, I don't know if you could get a bit closer to your microphone.
Okay.
I was thinking you're slightly quieter early on. So, okay, so that's Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Now, remind me, Phil, did you say just after Trump's election when Musk was getting involved, do I remember you saying they'll fall out with each other?
I think everyone was saying they expected that.
Right, okay.
And I probably said that as well, that it's quite likely that they do. And I think that's just, I think I did say that. And it's really just knowing their character quite a lot, that they both kind of like to be the center of attention. And so yeah, it's sort of expected. But I think they can, they'll have their ups and downs that will play out on social media. And it won't necessarily harm either of them.
No, possibly not. I guess when it comes to the people Trump should be bothered about are his most moderate voters or potential voters, people in the middle. So which side of this will they tend to go on to? Well, I guess Elon Musk is making more the right-wing case, cutting government funding. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows?
There's really nowhere for them to go, though, because the Democrats are not going to cut any more than the Republicans. So I don't think it's the two groups of people that support Musk and support Donald Trump. I think there's an overlap when it comes to would they vote Democrat, probably.
Yeah. Okay, let's stay on the debt issue, overspending. But this was in the Herald yesterday. Edinburgh City Council, £1.7 billion of debt. Edinburgh City Council's annual budget is 1.8 billion, and they're 1.7 billion in debt. And yet, in the council chamber, how much attention does this get? Well, they'll be sitting around talking about what roads they're going to put a big plant pot in and this, that, and the other. I mean, this should be like a serious crisis for them.
Now,
but it's just not.
Vaguely remember, and I'd have to check this out, but this was a long time ago, just hearing how Edinburgh had an absolutely massive surplus. And this was probably before the trams and things like that came in. Mm-hmm. That they were just basically sitting on piles of money. I don't know if that's right or not, but
I mean, they should be. I mean, as cities go, Edinburgh's got a lot going for it. I mean, in terms of being a prosperous, financially buoyant council. I mean, if Edinburgh can't do it, who can? I mean, they surely should be able to run an effective council finances, but they can't manage. That is a massive debt. I've got another slide. This is not very professional, but it'll give us an idea here. So Edinburgh City Council spending £119 million a year servicing the debt, 47 million interest, and then the rest is fees or they're repaying principal of the debt. So, and then the annual budget, 1.8 billion. The debt of the Scottish government is 2.5 billion. And the reason it's only 2.5 billion is that there's a rule that says I think they can only borrow 450 million a year. And that was only allowed a certain number of years. I can't remember how many years ago, probably roughly 5 years ago. And I think they basically maxed out their allowed borrowing for as long as they've been allowed to do it. And they've now got themselves into a 2.5 billion pounds debt.
Yeah.
And then add to that the UK debt, was that about 2 trillion or so? But the assumption seems to be that when you're running a council or a devolved nation or the United Kingdom, you just spend far more money than you get. You build up debt and don't worry about it, hand it on to the next government or the next administration. And there's no plan for dealing with it. And it's as though the culture is, don't worry about this. It all works out in the end. But we've seen councils like Birmingham Council, Glasgow Council has been in a total mess. That's been because of equal pay claims. It's tipped them over the edge.
Yeah.
But they've been the first to go. But I think the other councils, everything could go horribly wrong. Then what are they hoping for? They're hoping for the Scottish government to bail them out. What with? The UK government. So they're basically, we're in the situation where the culture, basically within people's lifetimes, has been that you just rack up more and more and more and more debt. And it sort of works out. You get away with it and it's sort of fine.
I think what I'm seeing is that there's a cost to bad policy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can come in with a lot of agendas and things like that, that use up a lot of money, that perhaps for environmental reasons or other things, and you think, well, we've got to do that because of this.
Yeah.
And then suddenly all the money's gone.
Yeah. I mean, if you're 1.7 billion pounds in debt as a council, I mean, do you think about wasting money on anything at all? I mean, that's your number one thing should be paring things down to the minimum, providing vital services, and that's it. You've got to try and get out of this problem, but not. Well, and then the council election 2022. I was unaware of this debt. But in the council election in 2022, which party, including us, hands up, we weren't on this either. Which party was saying, right, there's a massive debt. This could lead to some sort of financial catastrophe for the city of Edinburgh. We've got to get a grip on it. What part did that play in the council election? Well, nothing.
Yeah, and it makes me think, because we want to see Scottish Family Party councillors elected, and part of that is it's strategic for getting people in the sort of Holyrood elections or general elections and things like that. Mm-hmm. But actually, you can see that this is just needed. It's just vital to get people with good policy and maybe people that can do a bit of maths in.
Yeah.
You're a maths teacher, weren't you, Richard?
Uh-huh.
You think you could go and sort out the sums here?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? I think with the democracy, you said about democracy earlier on. In a democracy, once you've got a population whose dominant view is we just expect the government to spend more money and we don't really care about the long-term consequences. If once that's taken hold in the electorate, then how can the country flourish? Because any sensible government that says, look, right, we've got a problem here, but we've got to think long-term and face the facts and save the country from catastrophe down the road. If that party has got no chance of getting elected, then basically the electorate collectively are going to get what they deserve. They're going to get what they're voting for.
I think it would be interesting to look at what the level of personal debt is in the UK, because that would reveal what people's view of debt is. And so at a point where people's personal debt is high, then you can know what their priority is going to be, how they're going to think about national debt and things like that, and kicking the ball down the road.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess to put it bluntly, if someone said to me, right, would you be okay with the council borrowing £10 million and they're going to give you £100,000? I mean, it'd be a pretty principled person to say, no, don't do that. And that's basically the way this is presented to people. It's presented as something that they're going to gain from it. But the downside, it's not even part of political debate. I don't think I've ever heard Scotland's debt being discussed in any context at all. I've never heard anyone questioned about it in the media or in election campaign. It just seems like a total non-issue. But it's not. I mean, we can ask Kate Forbes, what's the plan for paying this off? I don't know what the answer is. The answer is, well, there isn't a plan. We're going to borrow another 450 next year. And, well, we'll leave that to our children and grandchildren to worry about. We're just having some nice shiny new schools and whatever, and keeping spending. So, right, we've just got one last issue to look at. This is something I was sent today. I'm going to make a video on this at greater length. This is a gender stereotypes questionnaire, P5 to P7, so for primary schools. This has been used in a council area in Scotland. There's also a P1 to P4 version that I haven't seen yet, but that's on its way. So I'll look at this in some more detail, probably in a video next week. But I thought we could have an initial glance at this. So it says, please read the following statements carefully and then circle to indicate if you agree, disagree, or unsure. This questionnaire is anonymous. Fill it in honestly according to your beliefs. Now, I don't think this is something where they're going to compile it nationally or council level. I think it's supposed to be a class discussion starter. And obviously, the lessons about gender stereotypes assumption will be gender stereotypes are bad. And the mission of Scottish schools is to break down gender stereotypes, or better still, to reverse them if they're honest about it. They really love them being reversed. So
I'm just pasting this into ChatGPT to see if it it can give us some sort of objective answers on this.
So P5 to P7. So what age is that? So P7, that's up to age 12, isn't it? So we're talking, so 10 to 12-year-olds, roughly. So let's have a look at it. Boys are better at maths than girls. Agree, disagree, or unsure. I think the actual factual answer to that is they are. Very slightly, but I think overall there is a slight difference. Certainly at the highest ability end, there's quite a significant preponderance of males at the very highest levels of mathematical ability. So I think by a very small margin, I think the answer to that is agree. But I'm sure if you're a boy or a girl in a school in Scotland or in this county and you put that, they think you're a problem and they need to solve you. They need to educate you out of your prejudice.
And is the right answer just that you say you're unsure about everything?
That's a good point, actually. What are you supposed to answer? You're supposed to answer, how dare you ask such a question? The answer is supposed to be, no, I guess the answer is supposed to be disagree, isn't it? You're supposed to disagree because they're the same.
Well, okay. I say that disagree that boys are better than... Yeah, I suppose you could say disagree that boys are better.
Yeah.
Or, let's see. Boys outperform girls by 9 PISA points in mathematics on average. Where 40 PISA points is 1 school year of learning. So they're about a quarter of a year ahead on average.
Yeah. So a small amount. Yeah, that's like I said, a marginal advantage. That advantage becomes a lot bigger at the very top end. Basically, males tend to be more varied. Virtually anything you measure, males are more varied. Like from height, for example, through any sorts of abilities, there tend to be more males at the extremes, extremely high or extremely low, extremely good, extremely bad. That's just the way it is. So with maths, there'll be more, well, with any academic discipline, there'll be more males at the extreme high end. There'll be more males at the extreme low end. But with maths overall, boys are better. So we're going to put a circle around agree, and the teacher's going to have to try and fix us, even though what we're saying is true. All right, next one. Girls are better at reading than boys. Well, I'll tell the answer. Yes. They are. They are. And I think it's a bigger difference than the maths gap with boys. I think the advantage with girls in reading at school, I think as far as I'm aware, from what I've read, there'll be lots of different statistics. But that is absolutely true. Girls are better at reading. Okay. So we've given 2 true answers, and the teacher will be not very happy at all. We're definitely
go and see the principal.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to stay at that desk and until you give the right answer. Right, it's okay for boys to cry. Yeah, well, yeah, you can see what they're trying to get.
It is
Yeah,
at times, but you don't want boys crying all the time.
No, it sort of undermined the idea. So, with boys, do you want them to be a bit stoical, to try and be able to, to hold it all together in some situations, to be a bit emotionally stronger? Is that desirable? Well, yes, but this is very much wanting to put that to one side. Is it okay for boys to cry? Well, yes, of course it is. So yeah, that's right. Next one. Girls are strong.
So I think at primary age, there's not massive difference between girls and boys in terms of athletic ability, and the difference comes after puberty, at which point there's a massive difference.
Yeah, I would imagine they're meaning throughout ages.
Well, I mean, you say girls and boys or whatever, so that could mean young, but yeah, that would be the answer I'd give,
Yeah.
But to say that girls after puberty are strong in comparison to boys is not right.
Yeah.
And there are other meanings of strong, say strong character, strong whatever.
Yeah. Stay as close as you can to your mic. That'd be good.
Yeah.
I mean, girls are strong. I mean, again, yeah. By what standard? So it's a daft question. You can't begin to answer it. You assume it's meaning in comparison to boys. It's a terrible question. If you're going to answer it relative to boys, throughout developmental years, you'd have to say that's a disagree. Right. Next one. Boys are good listeners. Compared to girls, I mean, who knows? I don't know. Let's move on from that one.
I'd suspect that girls are better listeners than boys. That I think there's one statistic that says that girls speak twice as much as boys.
I heard that women speak 3 times as much as men.
Okay, so
the average day.
So if they speak as much, then they must listen as much, and in terms of they have experience at listening. If you had the choice between having a doctor who had 1 year of experience or 3 years of experience, you'd probably go with the one that had 3 years of experience. And if somebody's had 3 times as much experience at listening, they're probably better at it than I am.
Okay, next one. Boys can be nurses. Well, obviously, I agree. Yeah. That's fine. Girls can be doctors.
But that said, I had a friend that was a boy on a nurse's course, and he said he was like one of three men on it.
Yeah. But I mean, girls can be doctors. I mean, do they really think that there's still anyone in the known universe, or in Scotland at least, that hasn't realised that women can be doctors?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most doctors female? If they're not, then certainly most medical students are.
Yeah.
I mean, girls can't be doctors. You have to be an adult before you're a doctor. So no, girls can't be doctors. I mean, girls like football. I mean, for goodness sake, what a ridiculous.
There's not even a right answer to that.
No.
You can't say unsure if girls like football. You can't say
most
you
girls, the
disagree
average
that they
girl,
like football, or that you agree. It's probably all of the beside.
Yeah. I mean, basically, to not put too fine a point on it, the person who's written this hasn't really given it a huge amount of thought. They know their objective, they know their philosophy, but not a lot of thought's gone into whether or not these questions make sense. It's a woman's job to do the housework. Okay, it's a man's job to do the housework. Well, would they see? Someone might say agree, but if the next question was, is it a man's job to do the housework, they might agree with that as well. But if you only ask one, you're sort of inviting the gender stereotype. I would imagine in the vast majority of homes, the woman does do more of the housework.
So maybe the man does other things. In my house is that I basically do the washing up, loading dishwasher, taking out rubbish. My wife does most of the vacuuming. I do some of the vacuuming. These kinds of things. She does some surface cleaning as well, and floor mopping and things like that. Mm-hmm. Don't do so much of, but
Right, let's jump on a bit. Right, men are the boss of the house. That's it. Again, is that inviting kids to assess their own house? I think some interpretations of Christian teaching would say that there's a special responsibility on husbands within the family, which maybe would be to some degree would be and agree with that. They wouldn't word it like that, but girls can chip in with anyone too. Girls can have short hair. I mean, again, is there really any point putting that now? I mean, boys can wear pink. Boys can wear dresses. Now
you can see where they're building up to this, aren't they? Now we
boys
get
can
to the
wear
actual. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I'm just casting my eyes down the next column, and so it's
yeah. So boys can wear dresses. Obviously, the right answer is agree, because otherwise you're gender stereotyping. If you say there's got to be any difference or is any difference between boys and girls, you're gender stereotyping. So obviously the answer is that boys can wear dresses. So that's basically a promotion and an endorsement of cross-dressing, transgenderism to primary school children in Scotland, which is appalling, absolutely appalling. Next one, it's okay for a man to marry a man. What that's going to do with gender stereotyping, I don't know. But we obviously know what the right answer is, supposed to be agree. I mean, a way of rewording that, is the Scottish Family Party wrong about same-sex marriage? And if you don't agree, got the wrong one. Men should be paid more than women.
Same job, same experience, same salary.
And you know what's going to come.
But on average, you might find that different genders choose different jobs. And they end up with different pay.
But you know what the teacher's going to be saying, don't you? I mean, virtually every teacher doing this is going to say, well, you won't believe this, children, but men get paid more than women. Who thinks that's fair? No, it's not, is it? It's very bad. This is called the gender pay gap. But fear not, the SNP is going to sort it out for women should stay at home. Men are more successful at work than women. True. On average, true. That's just factual. Girls should look pretty. Don't know. Again, the question's just useless. Is it okay for a man to hit a woman? Oh, there's a tricky one. No. Girls should not fight. Absolutely agree.
Well, that's a stereotype, though, isn't it?
Yes.
So you're playing into a stereotype there, because that's a long-held stereotype that men should not hit women.
Yeah.
So do you not think you should be breaking down that stereotype?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, there's two sides to that, isn't it? One is the
completely stereotypical, isn't it? That there'll be men having a fight, and it's like a woman gets involved. It's like you can't hit the woman. That's the kind of thing men would say. But if it's okay to hit for men to hit men, then it must be okay for men to hit women. Is that the argument they're making?
Yeah, so it could be if you say, no, it's not okay for a man to hit a woman. That's a sign of outdated sexist.
You are in trouble, yeah. You've gone too far, Richard.
Right, good point there. Girls should not fight.
Maybe we need a campaign for that in schools, do you think? The equality of hitting.
Yes, absolutely.
It's well known that men hit each other. This is unfair. They should distribute their punches more widely. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah. Girls should not fight. Agreed. Yeah, girls shouldn't fight. Yeah, totally agree. And they do quite a lot of it from what I hear in Scottish schools. Increasingly, fights between girls are a big problem. Only men are violent. Well, that's obviously rubbish. I mean, men who like dancing are gay. I mean, that's too ridiculous to even think about. Husband can tell his wife what to do. We talked about that. Only men should fight in the army. I mean, my personal opinion is yes. I do think it should only be males in combat roles in the military. That's another story. Men and women should have equal rights. And the last one I can't read very well.
That's stereotypical as well, do you think?
Which one?
Men and women should have equal rights. That would be the stereotypical opinion.
What's the? Can you read the last box?
I'm happy to show affection to someone who is the same gender as me.
Right, and that's pretty serious as well. Basically that's an invitation to homosexual relationships, isn't it?
I think that's what the way that they're, like there can be affection in a brotherly way between men, but I think they're in that men don't have to be completely cold to each other, and there's be warmth in friendship and those kind of things. But yeah, I think that's what they want to say.
Yeah, that's the way the primary school kids will take it. So the boys might think, do I give my friend a hug? Do I give him a kiss like I do mum and dad? No, I don't do that. But they're saying, oh, well, why not? This is gender stereotyping. Maybe you ought to do that. And so just another glimpse into some of the, I'm going to say, it's worse than nonsense. It's worse than nonsense. Some of it's nonsense. Some of it is political indoctrination. And some of it is like an invitation into, to bad life choices, basically. So keep an eye open for a video, and I'll look at that in a bit more detail, and when I get the one for the younger kids as well. Right, an hour has flown by, so I hope that was interesting. The live stream next week on Tuesday, do join us then at 9 o'clock. I'm actually away somewhere next Tuesday, but the live stream will be going ahead one way or another. I haven't quite finalized details, but it will be going ahead, so tune in.
Going anywhere nice?
Right, good night.